call.
Good evening, sir. I
Sorry, I was a little bit late. So, guys, today we are starting our first topic that we called as Linux, which is very important in terms of DevOps. And in this topic, we are going to discuss about the Linux, how Linux is being used in the current IT scenarios. Apart from this, why Linux is the most favorable operating system in IT industry, what is the use case, what are the topics that we are going to discuss. And during this, if you face some kind of a issue, uh, let me just complete my words first, and then you are free to ask if you have any kind of issues. Okay, so guys, I'm just sharing my screen. Do let me know if it is visible to you. Just a second, please. Yeah, so I think you are getting my screen, correct?
it's visual.
Okay, so before starting this topic, I just wanted to know that among you guys, who has used Linux in their prior experience, or still, I mean, working on Linux? Anybody of you is having experience on Linux?
Yes, sir, I have.
Okay,
Yes, sir.
okay. So as you have experience of working on Linux, so definitely you have uh, I mean, you are pretty much confident that Linux is a little bit more, or I would say it is far better than in terms of, I would say, server management or IT experience. It is far better than Windows and other operating systems. So the guys who don't know about Linux, so I'm going to give you an introduction on this. So guys, before that, this will be the syllabus for this particular topic, that is Linux. Under this topic we do have different modules, and under those modules we are going to cover Linux from a very beginner kind of a person to a pro person in the current IT industry in terms of Linux. So if I talk about the modules that we are going to have in this particular uh, chain of, or I would series of Linux topics, then the very first one, the very first module will be the understanding Linux concepts. Okay, so those who are not aware about the terms Linux, this is only the syllabus. After that, we are going to discuss about in depth of Linux. So don't be hesitated on this. We are going to cover each and every of your doubts in this particular session. And after, once you are good to go further, then we are going to proceed. Okay, so in module 1, understanding Linux concept, the very first one we are going to work on what is Linux, why Linux is being used in everyday. There is a thing in Linux called Unix. So what is the difference between Unix and Linux? Which is the which particular flavor was earlier invented? After this, once we are very much clear with the background of Linux, I mean, now instead of the hypothetical way, we are pretty much sure that yes, Linux is a kind of operating system. We are pretty much sure about that, and we are completely good to go with all the in and outs of Linux in terms of theoretical, or I would say in terms of the what is the logic behind using Linux in everyday. Once we are good to go, then we will proceed on the module 2. So the module download, install, and configure Linux. Generally, guys, as you are becoming a DevOps engineer, it is this particular module is not mandatory for you to follow, where we are going to install Linux onto some virtual machine, I would say virtual box. We are going to talk about the different installation of different Linux distributions. So I would personally, apart from this, another thing is that as we are proceeding our training in terms of cloud, I mean, after some time we are going to have training on the cloud platforms as well. So this module 2 is not that much important for you, but for being or to know Linux from the base, it is good if you know the installation process of Linux as well. Because there are some scenarios where, let's say, if you work in a company which are still using some of the, I would say, I would say, uh, Linux operating system, they are there, I would say some part of infra is on base operating system, not on cloud. So there, this particular module is going to help you, because we are covering what we are covering in this training. In this training, we are covering from zero to hero. Means if we talk about Linux, then it includes the installation part as well. So under this, once this module is completed, then the third module comes is system access and file system. So what is system access and file system? In this particular topic, we are going to discuss about how we access our Linux systems. Okay. Now, let's say if you are using a Linux operating system, how you can connect with the other Linux operating system. Suppose if you are using Mac OS, then how you can connect with a Linux server. Suppose if you are using a Windows system, how you are going to connect with the Linux server of the organization, or that you have configured. So in that way, we are going to discuss about the system access. Now, file system. The file system is a very important topic. Generally, if I would say, those persons who are working or who are preparing on the RHCSA and RSE, those are very much familiar with this particular term, file system. File system is nothing but it is a way that how we are handling our files in Linux. So this is all about file system. Although this name seems little bit short, but it is very in depth in terms of, I would say, knowledge. And if you want to know more about Linux, that how generally Linux work, you should be I would say you should be very much confident on this particular topic. uh, File system, you can consider those who do not getting this term. I'll give you an example. Let's say if you are a Windows user, because now or in the past everyone has used Windows. So let's say we do have C drives in our Windows. In under the C drives, we have the system related configurations. We do have D drives, we do have F drives. The similar way Linux also works. It has some directories, it has some drives where system related configuration files, I would say your application related configuration files. Apart from this, if you need to do some kind of a customization where you need to put those particular customizable files. So all these things we are going to cover under this file system. Okay. Then under this file system, we are also going to introduce about some of the important commands that are being used. Let's say find, locate. What what is the difference between find and locate? Because after this, when you are going to jump into, I would say, scripting part, then this find command is going to be very useful. Suppose if I'll ask you that, hey, you need to search something into your operating system, how you are going to do that? In Windows, it is very easy. Why? Because we do have a GUI there. GUI means we have graphical user interface there. But this Linux is completely, I would say, reverse to it. We are not going to work on the GUI part there. We are completely going to work on the CLI part, that is command line interface part. And we are going to compare each and every task. Let's say if you are searching something in Linux, then what are the other parameters we can use? Let's say if you want to search on the basis of a file which is having space of less than 10 GB, or let's say you want to find on the basis of the name, let's say you want to find on the basis of the date of creation of the files. So such kind of a scenarios we are going to have in this particular topic. Because as being a DevOps engineer, there are some little automation task you can get. Let's say for the server maintenance, what you have to do, you have to create some scripts where let's say if a script is some files are lesser than 1 month, you need to delete that. Then you are not going to look for each and every file. You are not going to look for each and every file's date. Oh, this was created at that time, so I can delete it. So there we are going to use this find command. So this is one of the scenarios that might be, I mean, most of the companies right now are using with the find command. Apart from this, how we can change password in Linux? The similar way we change password in Windows, the same way we can change password in Linux as well. Apart from this, what is wildcards? So suppose if you are not confirm about the complete name of the file, So Linux provides you a facility of using wildcard, where just putting some I would say alpha, or I would say some special symbols, you can search for let's say for some files, for some directories. So you can search on the basis of this. Then we are going to discuss about the soft link and hard links in Linux, because this is very important. When we are working with Linux, we should know about the basics of soft link and hard link. Even the guys who are preparing for the RSCSA interview in some organization, or they are preparing for the system admin job, definitely they are going to face this question, that what is the difference between hard link and soft link, how we can unlink a hard link or soft link. We are also going to in the previous module, we are also going to compare what is the difference between the Linux and Windows, that why we are using Linux in into this particular course, why we are not using Windows. Then on to the module 4, we are going to cover up the syntax. Let's say we are going to cover up the daily users command. Let's say user add command, user delete command. Suppose if you need to monitor some server's performance, then we are going to cover that thing as well. The file permissions, because as being a DevOps engineer, it is your responsibility that each file in your server should not be accessible to each person. It should be accessible to the person who is uh, authorized to use it. Let's say if I give you a scenario, you work as a DevOps engineer. So generally DevOps engineers are having the all the root privileges, or I would say super user privileges with them. I'm not saying 100% super user, but somehow they can access all the files. Okay, now let's say if a developer come to you, so it is your responsibility that developer can only access the files which is required for the development of my software. There is nothing related to the infra files for the software developer. So there we are going to put the file permission. We are going to work on the file ownership, means who owns the file. Apart from this, we are going to use some helping commands as well. Let's say man command, let's say what is command, and other as well. Now in Linux, it is not mandatory for you to type the complete command. What you can do, if you know one or two characters of the command or one or two words of the command, using the tab, uh, the keyboard tab, you can complete your commands. Apart from this, how we can add some text to a file, what is standard output, how we are going to implement files, what are file maintenance command, display commands, text processors. So these kind of things we are also going to cover. Now in terms of text processor, again one thing come: cut, short, grep, awk, unique, wc. So these are the commands that you are going to use when I mean when you are going when you are doing any kind of a scripting. Majority of the commands are going to be used from this. Apart from this, I would say split command. So these all commands we are going to work there as well. How we can truncate any file in Linux. Suppose I don't want to so why this particular truncate is being used? Let's say you are managing a server in your company, and every day you are working on some logs. Now what happened after 3 days or 4 days, you are pretty much sure that my that particular file is going to take 10 GB or 20 GB of the space, and after 3 days those logs are not required to me. So instead of logging on to that particular server and uh, I would say cleaning it on or regular or alternate days, we are going to use the truncate command or log rotation kind of a things we are going to use over here. Then system administration task. So uh, under this module, we are going to cover up all the things which is related to the Linux system administration. Let's say what is the text editors, how we are going to use the sed command, what is the use case of sed command. Now under the module 3, I would say module 4 and 5, definitely you are going to face some of the questions, that what is the difference between awk and sed, what is the use case of using cut command, what is the use case of using sort command. So we are also going to cover up such kind of interview questions as well into this particular module. Apart from this, user account management, that suppose if you are I mean, let's say some new person or joins your organization, what privileges that particular person should have, because he's not a DevOps engineer, so you cannot give the complete access to that person. So we are also going to filter that access as well into the user account management. uh, how we can switch user from, let's say, user A to user B, we are going to switch
Hey
that as well.
Gaurav, can
Hello.
I? Yeah, this is Suman.
Yes, Suman.
Uh, do we? I mean, we are like a system admin also, apart from being an DevOps engineer.
So some of the tasks in DevOps engineer, some of the tasks you also have to work on system administration as well. Let's say if you are managing some servers, then definitely some system administration task should also be there. So it is good if you have the knowledge on that as well.
Knowledge part is fine, but just I'm curious whether we'll be acting like a network administrator also.
No, no, network administration is a complete different thing. This is
Okay.
the Linux administration.
Fine. Okay.
Okay. Then we are going to monitor the users as well. Into this particular topic, how we are monitoring the user. Let's say if you are having some unauthorized access on your server, so you are going to monitor that as well, because that comes under the SOC part, that is security operations centers part. Okay, how we can communicate with the users, how we can use the LDAP. Generally what happens in the organization, let's say if one person joins and I have 1000 servers, so I cannot log in on each and every server, and I cannot provide, although it is possible for me to log in each and every server and provide that access, but instead of wasting so much time on this, generally companies work on the LDAP concept. And what they do, they have a centralized server where they put an entry of the user, and that user can access the all the servers which comes under that particular rule. So we are also going to discuss on this. I mean, we are not going to have a complete practical implementation on this, but we are going to have the idea that how generally LDAP works. Okay, because suppose if you join one organization, they are using LDAP in different manner, and in some organization they are using LDAP in different manner. So I don't want you to be in a confused state. So that is why we are going to discuss this particular thing as well. Now, system utility commands, we are also going to discuss. Let's say what is date, uptime, hostname command. So whatever the day-to-day commands that we are going to implement, we are going to have in this particular module as well. Now, schedules. So this is very important. Let's say why this process and schedules is so important. Let's say I'll give you a scenario. uh, Suppose I'll give a scenario to Suman. Hey Suman, this is the script and you have to execute this script at 2 a.m. every day from Monday to Friday. So now there are two approaches you have. One is that Suman should wake up at 2 a.m. and he is going to execute it from Monday to Friday. Instead of this, what he can do, he can schedule this so that, let's say, he put a script or he put a cron. Generally, scheduling something in Linux is called cron. So he is going to do a cron which should run at 2 a.m. on every day. So such kind of a approach we are also going to use, because these kind of a questions can be asked to you. Suppose I need to implement a script to run at this particular time, how you can do that. So this we are going to capture that. Okay, now system monitoring commands. Let's say if I give you a scenario that my server got crashed. Now, as being a DevOps engineer, it is your responsibility to find the RCA for that particular things. So these commands you are going to use when you are looking for that particular issue. Let's say if my server got crashed, what could be the possible reasons for that? Or if my server is having some latency, what could be the possible reasons for that? So we are going to cover up this as well. Now, OS maintenance command, system logs, generally at which path the system logs maintains, because without logs we cannot troubleshoot anything in Linux. Not in Linux, I would say in any technology, without logs we cannot troubleshoot anything. So how the logs are maintained, how and what is the location of the logs. So we are also going to discuss that. Generally we can change the location of the logs, but this in this particular topic we are going to discuss about the default logs location. Okay, Now, how we can change the host name, and what is the host name, what is the use case of host name. So this will be covered up here. Now, finding some system information, this is also a system administration kind of a task. What are the different architectures available right now, some terminal controls keys. Apart from this, what are the terminal commands that we are going to implement, how we can recover the root password. There is SOS report. Generally, this is not considered in RSCSA exam SOS report, but some of the organizations are working on the SOS report concept. So I'll just give you idea on this as well. Now, what is environment variables, how we are going to use the environment variables. Apart from this, once these modules are covered, then we are going to jump on to our new, you can consider it as a module, or you can consider it as a technology, because shell scripting, uh, as being a DevOps engineer, it is good that you have some hands-on on some scripting, whether it is Python, whether it is shell scripting. But in this particular course, we are going to cover up the shell scripting part, where we are going to discuss Linux kernel, what is shell, type of shells, shell scripting, that what are the scenarios being covered in the IT industry, basic shell script, what are the loops there. And on the basis of all these things, we are going to cover up some real based scenarios. Let's say I'll give you a project to create a script that take a database backup on this particular time. Let's say I'll give you a scenario of create, because such kind of a scenarios are being asked to you whenever you are going to give a DevOps engineer interview. Definitely people are going to ask you, do you have any knowledge in any of the scripting language? So we are going to cover up in that manner that you can even answer, yes, I have knowledge in this scripting, and such kind of a scenarios I have created by my own. I have done the scripting for this part. So we are going to cover up this. Let's say right now, if I would say, those people who are giving the DevOps interviews, some bubble sorts are being sorting questions are asking to you, asked to you. Apart from this, there is a scenario called fizz buzz concept. This is also being asked. So we are going to cover up such kind of a scenarios. What I'll do after each and every topic, I'm going to tell you that you can face this kind of a question into your interviews. You can face this kind of a question in the interviews, so that suppose if you are not able to recall it that time, but you at least know the concept of that thing. Okay, then networking and server. So this networking is related to the Linux networking. Okay, let's say under this particular thing, we are going to cover up with the how we can troubleshoot in Linux on the basis of if there's some network related issue there. Okay, this is not again I'm saying this is not the network administration, but this is the part of Linux networking. Okay, what is the NIC port, how we can download files using the URL, what is the curl and ping. Apart from this, this is very important thing, yum, that is yellow update modifier server you are going to configure. Because in Windows, generally what we do, we go onto Google and just check a particular package for the Windows. The similar thing happens in Linux, but you have to download the package using CLI. So we are going to work on that scenario as well. Then there is a thing called patch management in Linux. Each and every company is doing this thing, patch management. So what is patch management is, let's say if you are working in an organization, and you got a report, or you got a mail from your higher management that you have a server in your infra which is having some vulnerable threats into it, and you have to fix those threats, and those vulnerable threats are related to your Linux OS. So how we can resolve that particular threat? So we are going to cover up that. Or let's say if you have updated some particular package, or updated some particular software in Linux, then how you can again degrade it. It is not I would say it is not recommended to degrade it back, but somehow if you stuck somewhere and you need to, there is no solution um available and the only solution available with you is to degrade it, then how we can degrade this particular software? We are going to discuss this thing. So generally this particular thing, patch management, seems very small topic, but it is very important, because each and every company do the audits under, and as being a DevOps engineer, it is your responsibility to have the green report for that audits. Either you are doing it manually or you are automating this thing, but at the end of the day, you are responsible for doing the patch management on the servers. I'm not saying that you are going to log in on the servers and doing the patch management, no, but the strategy for that you have to plan. Okay. uh, Apart from this, we are going to discuss about different protocols: SSH protocol, what is the telnet protocol, DNS protocol, let's say NTP protocol, what is the default port of each and every protocols, because this is also asked in the interview question. Let's say if you need to change the default port for SSH, how you can do that? You should know about that. Let's say if particular service works on port 80, then which protocol it is using, so you should know the answer of it. So I'll give you a complete sheet of it, that which protocol works on which port, so that you can get a good idea of the ports and the protocols. And then there's Apache server, central logging will be there. uh, some kind of a Linux, or I would say OS hardening is going to be there. How we can install the open LDAP, we can do, although it is not mandatory, because companies are using either the enterprise edition of the LDAP, or I would say custom free version of the LDAP. But I'll give you a brief of it, that how the LDAP generally works in the organization. Let's say now you need to trace from, let's say if you try to log in from your server and you are hitting google.com, then what network or what traffic your particular request is taking to reach google.com. We are also going to trace that particular thing, because all of the things are going to be covered in Linux, and you are going to use these things in DevOps, because DevOps is not just automating the things, but DevOps is also troubleshooting the things. Okay. Now disk management, generally how we can increase our disk, generally and guys, believe me, all the things that we are going to do, we are going to do on the cloud servers. We are not going to do on the physical servers. Why? Because the same thing, maximum of the market is on the cloud. So the, as per the demand of the market, we are going to cover it on the cloud. But the concept behind increasing or decreasing the disk partition will be the same, either in cloud as well as in data centers. So why this disk management is very important for you, and what is this run levels? Because generally each and every operating system works on some predefined run level, that says 0, 1, 2, 3. So what is the use case of each and every run level, and how whenever we are accessing any server, on which run level it is working. So we are going to discuss that as well. Apart from this, if I talk about the disk partition, so how many disk is being utilized, because in the Windows you can just click on to that particular location and you can see, okay, I have 500 GB of the space, out of which 200 has been used. So you can check, but how you can monitor the same thing in Linux? So we are going to discuss that particular thing in disk partition. And let's say if I give you a scenario, that I do have a 30 GB of the disk attached to my server. Now what happens? Somehow, or due to my application utilization, my has been in disk utilization has been increased, and the disk which is attached onto my server having space 30 GB is going to be completely utilized. So how we can increase our disk size without restarting our server? So that thing we are also going to discuss. So this is all about the uh, Linux introduction, and what the things that we are going to cover up in the coming days. Apart from this, what are the prod scenarios available there? So we are also going to discuss that thing. And guys, apart from this, after each and every module I'm going to give you some interview questions so that you can just go and check that what kind of a questions that you can face in the coming days when you are preparing for the DevOps engineer. So any questions now you can ask.
सर हम लोग माइक्रोसॉफ्ट का कुछ प्रोडक्ट यूज कर सकते हैं क्या इसमें?
Okay, may I know your name please? यशन।
यशन।
ओके, तो यशन पहली बात तो ये कि अगर आपको जैसे आईटी इंडस्ट्री में आना है तो, और इफ यू वांट टू बी अ डेवऑप्स इंजीनियर, यू हैव टू, आई एम सॉरी टू से दैट यू हैव टू फॉरगेट अबाउट विंडोज, द वेरी फर्स्ट थिंग। आई एम नॉट सेइंग।
No sir, I just ask like MS SQL server like C Sharp, VB.NET. We have product on this, so that's why I'm asking.
नहीं नहीं, सी शार्प और ये हम यूज नहीं करेंगे। आप विंडोज में ज्यादा से ज्यादा क्या यूज करेंगे, आपको मानो सर्वर का एसएसएच करना है तो एसएसएच करने के लिए जैसे टूल्स होते हैं पुट्टी, अपार्ट फ्रॉम दिस जैसे मोबाइल एक्सट्रम टूल्स होते हैं, आप उनका यूज करेंगे ऑन
So
विंडोज।
that is different thing sir. That is remotely. मैं उसके बारे में बात नहीं कर रहा, मैं जस्ट कर रहा हूँ एसक्यूएल सर्वर जैसे हम लोग इंस्टॉल कर पाएंगे इसमें, और VB.NET के जैसे इसमें टूल्स वगैरह आते हैं लिनक्स में, वो
नहीं नहीं, वो तो आप इसमें इंस्टॉल नहीं करेंगे क्योंकि ये कम्प्लीटली CLI बेस्ड होता है।
आई थिंक मैंने रीड करा था रेल 8 में शायद अभी उन्होंने फैसिलिटी दे दी है, इसलिए पूछ रहा था।
नहीं नहीं, ऐसे मतलब आपको जनरली करना नहीं पड़ेगा, बिकॉज द वेरी फर्स्ट थिंग, जैसे मानो अगर आप डेवऑप्स इंजीनियर काम करोगे, सो योर प्राइम फोकस इज टू हैव द एक्सेस ऑन द सर्वर्स। ओके, अपार्ट फ्रॉम दिस आप जैसे बात कर रहे हैं सी शार्प और इन चीजों की, तो एज पर माई अंडरस्टैंडिंग दैट व्हेन यू बिकम अ डेवऑप्स इंजीनियर, इट इज नॉट योर, आई वुड से वो आपका काम नहीं होगा कि आप सी शार्प और ये सब चीजें यूज कर रहे हैं, बिकॉज एट दैट टाइम आप जैसे स्क्रिप्टिंग कर रहे होंगे पाइथन की, आप स्क्रिप्टिंग कर रहे होंगे शेल स्क्रिप्टिंग की, आप आर में आई वुड से रूबी में स्क्रिप्टिंग कर रहे होंगे, तो उसके लिए और काफी सारे टूल्स हैं अवेलेबल। इवन अगर आप जैसे कोई ऑर्गेनाइजेशन ज्वाइन करेंगे एज अ डेवऑप्स इंजीनियर, तो आइदर दैट ऑर्गेनाइजेशन इज गोइंग टू गिव यू मैकबुक और विंडोज with the predefined softwares which is required in their organization.
Okay.
Guys, any other question?
Vikas, Suman here.
Yes, ma'am.
During this training, क्या हम लोग ये लैब फैसिलिटी कैसे यूटिलाइज कर पाएंगे?
लैब फैसिलिटी यूटिलाइज करने के लिए सुमन, व्हाट आई एम गोइंग टू डू, मैं आप लोगों का एक अकाउंट बनवाऊंगा AWS पे, सो दैट उसमें मैं आपको ये भी बताऊंगा कि आप सर्वर कैसे बना सकते हो। एक बार आपने सर्वर बना लिया, व्हेन यू हैव यूज दैट सर्वर, देन यू कैन स्टॉप दैट सर्वर। ये लैब फैसिलिटी हम कंप्लीटली इसी वे में प्रोग्रेस कर रहे होंगे।
अभी जैसे कि we have to install Linux and practice Linux commands, okay? Or whatever Linux you are going to teach us in these 7 modules.
Okay.
वो सब हम लोग उस पे कर पाएंगे ना?
हाँ, वो आप उस पे कर पाएंगे। अपार्ट फ्रॉम दिस, आई वुड गिव यू अनदर अल्टरनेट। देयर आर सम प्लगइन्स अवेलेबल फॉर लिनक्स। लेट्स से अगर आप विंडोज यूज करते हैं तो देयर इज अ प्लगइन कॉल्ड Ubuntu WSL, which is completely प्लगइन फॉर Ubuntu। उस पे आप कोई भी जो कमांड आप लिनक्स पे चलाएंगे, यू कैन यूज द सेम कमांड ऑन दैट एज वेल। If you do not want to go in that manner, then what you are going to do, you are going to create a AWS account, let's say. So guys, this is the console for AWS, okay, and you have to log in on this console. मैं आपने इसमें वेरी फर्स्ट टाइम आई एम गोइंग टू क्रिएट, मैं आपको एक सर्वर बनाना बताऊंगा इसके ऊपर। जब आप वो सर्वर बना लेंगे, तो जो भी हम लैब कर रहे होंगे वो हम उसी सर्वर के ऊपर कर रहे होंगे। मैं अपने लैपटॉप पे अलग से कोई चीज नहीं कर रहा हूँ, मैं सिंपली एक सर्वर यहाँ पे क्रिएट करूंगा और उस सर्वर के ऊपर हम सारी चीजें परफॉर्म कर रहे होंगे, और दैट सर्वर विल बी ऑफ लिनक्स, because in the future you are also going to work on the cloud, so it is better if we are doing the practice from day one.
Because what I mean is, we don't have to install VMware and all, right?
No, I'm not saying that it is mandatory to you for you to install.
Okay. Now in my thing, I cannot install a VMware on my PC. I mean laptop. Okay.
Mhm.
So through this AWS account, I can access all this what you are going to explain, and I can have a practice on that.
Yes.
Okay.
So after this call, what I'm going to give you, I'm going to give you the names of some prerequisite software for the persons who are Windows users only, because for the Mac and for Linux, it is not required to have those software, because we do have the shell available for that. So मैं सॉफ्टवेयर्स का आपको नाम बता दूंगा, आप एक बार उनको ट्राई करना इंस्टॉल करने का. If you are able to install it, then that's good. If you are not, we can have, or we can install in the next class. So in this way we are going to process our training. Apart from this, इनिशियल में मैं आपको एक सर्वर बनाना बताऊंगा लिनक्स का ऑन AWS और एनी क्लाउड, आई वुड से, बट जनरली वी आर गोइंग टू कवर अप AWS. तो आप लोग अगर चाहें तो डायरेक्ट उस पे काम कर सकते हैं. फॉर द पर्सन्स हु आर नॉट विंडोज यूजर्स, आप चाहें तो डायरेक्ट उस पे काम कर सकते हैं. बट इफ यू वांट टू वर्क ऑन मैक और लिनक्स which is your local laptop, so you can work on that as well. But in the future, definitely we are going to completely work on cloud. Okay. So any other question, guys? Anyone is having any kind of a question, you can ask, because this is the very beginning of the Linux. I would say जिसको कुछ भी नहीं पता है Linux के बारे में, he can also ask whatever kind of a question you can ask. Because अगर आपको day one से कोई डाउट रहा तो I think वो majority of the cases में लोग वो डाउट क्लियर नहीं करते हैं. Okay, so I think no.
Because can we have this syllabus what you are showing now?
Yeah, I'll provide it to the team, and the team will provide this particular syllabus to you, so that you can check that this particular topic has been covered, this particular topic has been covered. Okay.
Okay.
So I was going to tell you one thing. This was okay. So guys, इसके अलावा I mean, apart from this module, there are some if there is something new is added, so we are going to cover up that. Let's say if there is a scenario, or I would say I have faced that scenario where I was giving you training on to, I'll just give you a scenario. Let's say when I was giving you training on the system monitoring command, then I'm going to give you the training in the way that you are debugging the on prod scenario. Let's say one scenario I'm going to tell you right now, that suddenly you have a CPU utilization of 70%. Okay, due to which what is happening, your website is, because your website is hosted on to that particular server, so your website is having little bit latency. So as being a DevOps engineer, as being a SRE, as being a Linux engineer, what are your task, or what the things that you have to check, and how you are going to respond on that? Let's say if your system is down, you are not directly going and doing the debugging on it. The very first task that you are going to do, you are making your system up. Once it is up, you have already captured the required logs, then you are doing the debugging. So in that scenario we are going to work. Then another scenario, let's say if you have scheduled a cron and the cron got failed, how you can check and what is the reason of that particular cron failed, and how you can generally how a DevOps engineer debug that particular scenario. Apart from this, let's say if you are doing some scripting, then under scripting, what is the best way that you can minimize your code and you are getting the same output? What are the compress strategy that you should follow in your organization, and how we can compress and uncompress thing, and what is the use case of compress and uncompress? So all the things will be covered up there. Okay, now yeah, apart from this, there's a thing called Softlink. Now you will say that suppose if I have created a folder, then what is the use case of creating a soft link for that? So I'm going to give you a scenario in that as well. Let's say how the soft link is working, how the things are. Soft link generally you are going to do for the reference purpose. Okay, let's say if you have a directory 1 and directory 2, your base directory will be directory 1, but you have to make your instead of using your base directory, you have to put a reference to some other directory or to some other location. In that scenario, soft link is you have to use soft link. Okay, and what is the difference between hard link and soft link? Please make the concepts clear on that, because definitely you will face such kind of a questions. And related to the scripting part, I have already told you that how we are going to approach that thing. Apart from this, suppose you are doing the hands-on by your own, and you encountered with an issue. So please don't keep that issue with you. Try to ask that issue in the class or in the group that we are going to have, so that other persons, let's say if one person has faced the issue and after some time some other person has faced the issue, so please do not keep that issue with you. Please try to broadcast it so that other person, even might be, I'm not saying, there are some scenarios which even I don't know, and you have resolved it at your own, so that will be a new learning for me as well. So please broadcast the information whatever you got. Okay, now I expect that nobody is having any doubt. If any doubt, you can ask, or I'll move to the next slide.
Because actually I am new to everything, so doubt तभी आएगा जब थोड़ी बहुत information या knowledge हो.
ओके, सो सुमन, मैं टेक्निकल एस्पेक्ट्स में बात नहीं कर रहा. जो अभी तक मैंने मॉड्यूल की बात की, जनरली आपने लैपटॉप तो यूज मतलब आप लैपटॉप तो यूज करते ही हैं, तो फॉर दैट सिनेरियो एज वेल, बिकॉज मैंने आपको कहा कि मैं आपको कंपेयर करके लेके चलूंगा बिटवीन विंडोज एंड लिनक्स. एंड एक पॉइंट ऐसा आएगा जब आप लोग ही बोलेंगे कि हमें लिनक्स का आइडिया हो गया, नाउ वी आर नॉट रिक्वायर्ड एनी काइंड ऑफ अ कंपैरिजन. सो इन मतलब जो the method of delivering the training will be this. If you require any other kind of a method of delivering, you can suggest me. I'll happy to go with that instead.
Okay.
Yeah. So okay, now go to the other topic. So this is the very first topic of Linux, that understanding Linux basic. Okay, so why Linux is so important? So I mean, those who has used Linux, can anybody tell me that why you choose Linux instead of Windows? Anyone? I think someone has told that he has experience on hand, or he has hands-on on Linux. Can anyone please tell me? Okay, no issues. So what is Linux actually? Yeah.
सॉरी आई थिंक लिनक्स जो है हम कस्टमाइज अपने हिसाब से कर सकते हैं. और सेकेंडली इसका जो सोर्स कोड है वो फैमिलियर है, जिसका मतलब कोडिंग वगैरह का पता है. और थर्ड वन इज द कर्नल. हम लोग इसका बड़ा मतलब स्ट्रॉन्ग है, तो हम कोई भी से हैक वगैरह बहुत easily नहीं कर सकता according to the window.
Okay.
I think so. Yes.
Okay. So
And
your
third one
first,
is a freeware.
sorry, the third one is?
Freeware, open source, I think.
Okay. And
तो कुछ भी अभी तो
ठीक है, तो आपने जो पॉइंट्स बताए, द पॉइंट्स दैट यू हैव डिस्कस्ड और द पॉइंट्स दैट यू हैव हाइलाइटेड आर almost correct. The very first thing is Linux is free to use. I'm not saying it is completely free, but there are some distributions available of Linux which is free. But the similar case is completely reverse with Windows. Although there are some persons who are downloading Windows from different sources of Google and use it freely, but logically Windows is not free. You have to purchase a license for Windows, but that thing is not required in Linux. There are some distributions, let's say distributions like CentOS, Ubuntu. So such kind of a distributions you can use freely. There are, whereas some distributions which are which you required licensing, let's say Linux, Red Hat. So such kind of a flavors you are going to have the license for them. Okay, so before going deep into the topic, let's get back to the basics. So what is Linux? The very first thing is Linux is an operating system. Okay, so just consider this thing. Let's say this is your operating system, this is your hardware, and this is your user. Okay, and whatever the things are processing, all the things are processing between the hardware or user is doing with the help of operating system. So if anybody is going to ask you what is Linux, so your answer to that Linux is an open source operating system. Okay, please try to include that word open source operating system whenever you are defining about Linux. So again, come to the back seat. Again, if anybody is going to ask you what is Windows, then your answer that Windows is an operating system, but that is not open source. Now, what is open source? Let's say my name is user A, and I have joined open source community, or when I'm using a Linux, I'm using Linux, so I'm part of open source community. But I think that this particular thing into my Linux operating system is not suits me. Okay, and I want some kind of a changes into it. So you can customize those things in Linux, whereas that thing is not available in Linux. And even when you customized it, you can broadcast that thing as well. You can push your changes to the open source community, and if that is good for the operating system, they can release it into their next branch. Okay, or next version, whereas this thing is not available in Windows. Let's say if I say you have to customize something in Windows, so is it possible for you that you can customize let's say VLC media player, or I would say any kind of a software available in Windows, available for Windows, can you customize it? The simple answer is no, you cannot customize it, because that owns by an organization which is called Microsoft, and Microsoft is only having the copyright to make some changes into the operating system. But the same case doesn't goes with Linux. You can do the customization at your own in Linux. Okay, now what is Linux and what is Unix, and why Linux came into the picture? The very first thing, before the Linux, there is a terminology called Unix was available in the market. So Unix was nothing but you can say it is the initial phase of Linux with some drawbacks. Now, what are the drawbacks and who has invented Linux? Who has invented Unix? We are going to discuss. So Unix was invented by AT&T laboratory, by AT&T, whereas the Linux was invented a person named Mr. Linus Torvalds, and he has invented Linux in the early 90s. Okay, now Linux is mostly free, as I have already told in my past slide that Linux is mostly free, and what flavors of Linux is free. I'm going to give you an more detailing on that. Linux is open source. The similar thing, let's say if you want to make some kind of a changes into it, you can do it by your own. Okay. Now, what is Unix? So right now, if I would say Unix is majorly used by some of the organization, let's say Solaris, which is owned by Sun Microsystems. Okay. Apart from this, if I would say Unix was having, or Unix supports very few file systems, means you do not have more varieties of using file system in Unix. Let's say if Unix uses file system A, then either you like it or not, but you have to use file system A. But whereas in Linux, you have multiple availability, or I would say uh, Linux supports multiple file systems. So let's say if you like one file system, there are some file systems named as, let's say, ext4, let's say ext3, or I would say xfs. So these are nothing but these are the name of the file systems. Okay, so you have the more or you have the broader range of file systems in Linux. Apart from this, what is the difference between Linux and Windows? Okay, the very first thing, it is almost free, whereas you have to purchase a license for Windows. There are some also, I would say, disadvantages of using Linux for the persons who are non-technical, but I'm not for the non-technical person, it can be a disadvantage, but for a technical person, it is an advantage. Let's say if I talk about Linux, Linux is not easy to use, or it is not user friendly. Why not user friendly? Suppose if anybody who doesn't know anything about Linux and I want him just to copy one file from folder A to folder B, so I'm pretty much sure that at the very first time he won't be able to do that. Whereas if I ask a person, hey, you need to copy one thing from this file to this file in Windows, he can easily do that. Okay. Apart from this, if I talk about reliability, so Linux is more reliable as compared to Windows. Let's say if you are using 10 or 20 programs at the same time on Windows, so definitely you have faced this issue. When you check your task manager, you can see that there is very high utilization in Windows, and sometimes your Windows laptop got hang. So to get rid of it, you need to reboot that particular thing. But this doesn't goes with Linux. In Linux, what you have to do, let's say you can run multiple programs at the same time, and there is no requirement to reboot that particular Linux server. And not only the day one, you can run the same program for a very longer time, because it is not I mean, reboots are not frequent in Linux, I would say. Apart from this, Linux is being used by most of the enterprises or just to create their software, whereas suppose Windows you are using in day-to-day life, let's say creating your PPTs, let's say you are doing some game, you are uh, just playing some games, or you are watching some movies, so you are doing such kind of a stuff with the help of Windows, but this kind of a stuff you cannot go with Linux. Okay, now if I talk about the multitasking, let's say you are running a script on your Linux server, and at the same time you are doing something else, or you are doing, I would say, or you are running different scripts on the Linux server at the same time. So such kind of a facility is available in Linux. Just don't consider it for one or two scripts. You can consider it for n number of scripts or n number of tasks. But if I talk about it in terms of Windows, Windows although comes with the multitasking, but it has some foundations on it. Means you cannot open multiple files at the same time in Windows. So definitely you are going to face some kind of issues in that. Apart from this, in terms of security, Linux is far away as compared to Windows. Why? Because for Windows, you required some kind of a antiviruses to make to run your system flawlessly. Whereas if I talk about in terms of Linux, you do not require any kind of a what I was saying. Yeah, you do not require any kind of a softwares, or I would say, I forgot the term, just I have repeated. So you do not require such kind of a softwares to make it secure. Instead of it, what you are doing patching in Linux. So what is patching? I have already told you, let's say you got a red report. You can say you got a red report from your management that this particular software can cause such kind of a security threat in your Linux. So what you can do, instead of purchasing any external software, you can upgrade the version of that particular software by your own. So in that terms, it is very secure. Apart from this, if I talk about in terms of information security, whatever the algos or whatever the whatever the algos are created, it is not easy to crack any code in Linux, because in the background, Linux works on some algos. Let's say some chop algos. These are the name of the algos. Some, I would say, sorting algos. So Linux works on those, whereas this thing doesn't goes with Windows. Okay. Now, in terms of open source, Linux is open to public. Anybody can use it. What you can do, you just go onto the official website of I would say CentOS, or I would say Ubuntu. You can download the distribution that you like, or the version that you like, and you can install it in your system, and you can easily use it. There is no requirement for you to pay for the support of it, whereas this thing doesn't goes with Windows. What you have to do, although you can download the Windows, there are some cracks available to downloading of free Windows, but you cannot use it freely. Definitely at some point of time, definitely you need to purchase your license, or you need to upgrade to a licensed version instead of using the free version. So this is the basic differences between the Linux and Windows. Now, distributions of Linux. If I talk about the distributions of Linux, right now the distributions which are dominating the market are Red Hat, CentOS, and Ubuntu. So these are and some others are available, let's say Fedora, Debian, SUSE. So only I have given 6 names here, but apart from these 6 names, there are other distributions. Let's say Mint is available. Apart from this, right now what the organizations are doing, they are taking a copy of CentOS, and as I have told you that you can easily customize it. They are customizing it as per their use cases. uh, the best example for that, let's say Amazon Linux. So what is Amazon Linux? Amazon Linux is nothing. They have taken a copy of the CentOS, or I would say Red Hat flavor. They have done the customization as per their organization, and they have launched that particular OS onto their cloud portal, and the organizations are using it freely. Okay, so in this manner, you can have a download of a distribution and customize by your own, and you can use or you can just release it to be used. Okay, now question again comes, people definitely going to ask you, if there are so many distributions available in the market, then definitely there is some benefit of using a distribution. That let's say if I give you a scenario, I want to use Ubuntu instead of CentOS, then you have to justify me that why I should go with Ubuntu instead of CentOS. So the reason is, if I talk about only these 3, okay, the very first thing here is, you can get a question that, okay, distributions of Linux, if I would say, there are 2 kind of a distributions. I would say distribution architecture. You can consider it distribution architecture. So there are two kind of architecture available in the market. One is the DEB architecture, okay, and another is the RHEL architecture. Now, what is DEB architecture? What is RHEL architecture? So under this architecture, I would say RHEL, these are the most dominating architectures available in the Linux market right now. So what is the difference between the DEB architecture and RHEL architecture? Interview questions, or I would say questions you can have. Examples of RHEL architecture can be Red Hat, okay, and CentOS. The mostly used OS for RHEL architecture, whereas for DEB architecture, you can use Ubuntu. The difference, you can have an answer that what is the difference between Ubuntu and Red Hat, or I would say Ubuntu and CentOS. The very first thing is the architecture difference. CentOS is having the RHEL architecture. So whatever the packages, whatever the software available for this kind of a architecture are called the RPM. RPM is nothing but it is an acronym for Red Hat Package Manager. Okay, and for DEB, those are the DEB, I would say DPKG kind of a packages you can have for it. Now, apart from this, if I talk about the updation, then Ubuntu gets the frequent updates into it. Let's say today is, I would say, 25th of April. Okay, and when you check for the any new update available in the new district, or any new update is available, if you compare the updation, then Ubuntu provides you more frequent update as compared to CentOS. Why? The reason is, as I have told you, that CentOS uses the RHEL architecture and Red Hat is not free to use. Okay, so what actually happens? Suppose if Red Hat provides an update, then it is only available with CentOS, or CentOS provide an update, then after some validation or after some time it is get released, whereas Ubuntu is free. So that is why anybody can provide the update, or anybody can have the updated packages in Ubuntu. So this is the major two differences between the RHEL architecture and DEB architecture in Linux. So now if you are having any question, you can ask. I think definitely there will be questions. Yeah, you can ask.
Hi Vikas, Suman here.
Yes, man.
You're saying something about the patch.
Yes.
That if there is an issue with the patch, you can, make your own patch. In general terms, when there is an update, we receive an update package and we install it. And if in a scenario, or in an IT scenario, if there is an issue, you roll back that package, right?
Yes.
Now, how can we do it by ourselves? That creating a patch and installing it.
Okay. So Suman, patch management is different thing and rolling is different thing. Okay. So what it is actually, so patch is nothing. It is related to some updated software. Okay. And this is not released by me. This software is released by the organization of which architecture I'm using. Let's say if I'm using some DEB architecture, then definitely open source community has released that thing. The way, I'm not saying that you have not contributed to it, you have contributed to it, but at the end of the day, they are the one who is releasing it. Okay, then this release is available for the patch. Okay, whereas now suppose if I have done the patching, let's say if I was having the package named as A, and I have updated to the package instead of to A plus. Now I found that A plus is not compatible with my operating system. Now what I have to do, I have to revert it back. Then I have to use a rolling or I would say rollback strategy to do it. Nothing you have to do. You have to just if you are using this particular package, then what you have to do, yum undo, and you have to use such kind of a command, and you can roll back to the previous versions. So in that approach, you can have the patch management.
नहीं विकास, आप ये तो ठीक है कि अपन ने जो अपडेट किया था उसको रोल बैक कर रहे हैं, ये तो जनरली हो गया। ये आप बीच में बोल रहे थे कि जैसे अपडेट आपने किया और किसी कारण आपका सूटेबल नहीं है और कंपैटिबल नहीं, वॉट एवर इट इज, तो आप क्या बोल रहे थे कि यू कैन अपडेट इट योरसेल्फ, दैट पैच, यू क्रिएट अ पैच योरसेल्फ एंड लोड इट, ऐसा कुछ बोल रहे थे आप, या तो मैंने कुछ गलत सुना?
नहीं, मैंने इस कॉन्टेक्स्ट में नहीं कहा। आई थिंक या तो मेरे डिलीवरी में कुछ फ्लॉ होगा या फिर कुछ समझने में थोड़ी सी मिस्टेक होगी। एक्चुअली पैच मैनेजमेंट क्या होता है सुमन, दैट इज रिलेटेड टू द अपडेशन ऑफ योर सॉफ्टवेयर। इफ
इन जनरल टर्म्स क्या होता है कि पैच इज रिलीज्ड, वी इंस्टॉल इट, इफ वी आर फेसिंग एन इश्यूज वी जस्ट गो बैक टू द अर्लियर वर्जन।
करेक्ट,
बेसिकली वही है ना
जी।
ओके ओके,
या सो अगेन yeah, so who are the users of Linux? So you just name the organization. All of the organizations are using Linux. Suppose the best examples, you can say NASA is using Linux, US government agencies is using Linux, any healthcare company is using Linux, whatever the bullet trains are running, the servers behind are Linux. The ATC, the air traffic control servers, are completely based on Linux. Any stock exchange is completely based on Linux. So I would say any entertainment industry who is running their website is completely hosted on Linux operating systems. Any e-commerce leaders in the market, they all are the users of Linux. So these are the I would say just a second. So these are the major contributors, or I would say the big users of Linux right now available in the market. Instead of this, I would say even you will shock to know that Windows is also, Microsoft is also using Linux in the backend. So any organization who is launching their website, who is creating their website, their product is completely developed on Linux. Why? Because of the use cases that we have discussed here. So these are the reasons that everybody is going on Linux. Okay, so guys, any questions on this? Even after some time, I would say you are also going to be the user of Linux. Okay, so if there is no question, I would give you some prerequisite so that you can be on the same stage in the training. What I required from you, those are the Windows users, those who are the Windows users. What you have to do is Windows users, okay, you have to install these softwares. Either you can install MobiXterm, okay, or you can use Putty, or you can use iTerm. So these are nothing but these are the or you can say you can install Ubuntu WSL. So these are the softwares, okay, that you have to use for accessing your Linux servers. First thing, okay. Apart from this, if anybody wants to install their VMware, okay, then they can install the VMware software. I'll give you a hint that how you can install your OS on VMware software. Okay. For the Linux use, and apart from this, you either any cloud account you should create. Okay. Any cloud, I would say AWS or Azure or GCP, that is totally up to on you. But we are going to have AWS because it is very friendly to use the very first time, I would say, and it is easy to understand. So I would go with AWS. So you have to create your AWS account. What you have to do, you have to register yourself on AWS. Please try to create your AWS account today only, because it takes some time to make your account applicable. Okay, so this is for the Windows users, and this is for all. You have to focus on this. And once all the things are done, let's say if you have installed mobile XTRM, you have installed any kind of a software, uh, please just give me a go ahead, so that on the basis of that we can process our training. And I would request you to just create your any cloud account as soon as possible, I would say. So any doubts in this, you can ask me. And yeah, another thing, please create your GitHub account. I think those who are not available in the previous classes, I have told you that we are going to cover GitHub after the once the Linux is completed. So it is good if you are creating your GitHub account, because from now onwards, I'm not saying now onwards, once we have started the GitHub chapter, then whatever the things, or I would try to push the things on the GitHub account, so that you can just download it there. And this is not only applicable for me as well. What is happening right now in the market, people can showcase their cloud or any kind of a development skills. They generally provide their GitHub account URL. Anybody, let's say, have given their GitHub account, then people can access their account contents, and they can check that on what particular thing the person has worked. So it is also good for you as well, not for this course, it is also good for you. So please try to create these things, and please have this prerequisite completed before coming to the next class, I would say. So now guys, if you have any doubt, you can ask me.
Hi, hello, Vikas.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's Syed here.
Yes, Sayed.
Yeah, I have a question that the person who is having an experience of 10 years, like as in system and network admin, then he will be also join this course to.
Yeah, he can also join the course.
What are the things like in this DevOps Linux for sure, and then GitHub?
Then we are going to have the cloud there as well, AWS. We are going to have Jenkins, we are going to have Ansible, Terraform,
Right.
all the DevOps tools which are right now emerging in the market. We are going to cover up those.
So like it is useful for those system admin and network admin people, right?
So if you are planning to go, and if you are planning to upskill yourself in terms of DevOps and the latest technologies, then this particular course is going to be very helpful for you.
Okay. Okay, because I'll talk to Gaurav also.
Yeah.
This.
Okay, so guys, any other questions? Because from tomorrow onwards, we are going to completely work on the practical and theoretical of the Linux. Today is the intro about the Linux. Might be some of the picture has been clear to you about Linux, that what is Linux and how we are going to use it, who are the users of Linux. In the coming chapters, the picture is going to be more clear, I would say, when we are going to work on the Linux, about the installation part, about the commands, and how we can access our Linux servers. All the things are going to be clear there.
Vikas, Suman here.
Yes, Suman.
Tomorrow's class, we should be ready with our AWS account so that we can start that Linux practicing as well.
Yeah, it will be good for you if you have your AWS account.
We have no idea to create. I have no idea.
Okay.
Would you help me, or tomorrow in the class can we?
So in the tomorrow, I mean, what you have to do, just go onto Google and do one thing. Just create.
Okay. In YouTube, there will be a lot of videos available.
Yeah, YouTube, there is a lot of videos available, and please try to create it initially with yourself. If you are not able to do that, I'll help you out there. But what you generally have to do is, let's say I'll just give you a hint here. It's very simple.
I think it's free, right? Because
It is free for 1 year, and
for 1 year.
yeah. So what you have to do, let's say if you have used your services, okay, then please stop them so that you won't get charged, because 750 hours is provided to you to use those services freely. After that, you are going to pay for that, and this is for 1 year. I mean, either 750 hours or 1 year. But what this thing I also do, I have used my account. Then after that, I stopped my services, and the next time when I'm logging into my account, I'm starting my services.
Okay. Yeah. Because they are also mentioning here free trials.
Because I could not understand.
Okay. So generally what happens, Suman, suppose if you have created your AWS account, so initially AWS provides you for 1 year of access, 1 year of access to use their resources freely. Okay, freely. Some of the resources are available, which will complete your training. Okay, some of the resources. Now, suppose if apart from this, there is a time limit of 750 hours. Let's say if you have created a AWS account and you have created a server and you forgot to stop that server, now what will happen? Once the 750 hours is completed, you are going to bill for that.
नहीं समझ गया आप ये कहना चाहते थे ना कि अगर हमको जितना यूज करना उतना ही यूज करके उसको फिर सर्वर को ऑफ करना है, वही है ना?
Yes.
What do you mean?
Yes.
So suppose I am going to practice for 1 hour. After that, I have to switch off that server, and when again I log in, I have to switch it on, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So AWS का अकाउंट बनाने के लिए आपको क्या करना है? आप you just have to log in onto aws.amazon.com. Here there is a thing called sign in to console. So once you click on it, it will ask you to create your account, create a new AWS account. So once you click on it, okay, now what you have to do, you have to give your email ID, you have to give the account name that you wish to have, and you have to verify your email address. After that, you will receive a link on your email account, and there what you have to do, you have to provide your card details. Initially 2 rupees will be deducted from there just for the verification, and after that, let's say if you after that, I think, I'm not sure, you can remove your card details from your account just to use it free, I would say.
We are able to remove because I think here we need to use credit card or a debit also. It's okay.
I think it is credit card. I'm not sure about debit card because I have created my account with credit card. So you can use credit card.
We can use both.
Yeah.
We can use both.
Yes. But I think it's a MasterCard or Visa only. No rupee card is accepted there.
GCP, there is no option to remove the card once you. In AWS, we have option to remove the card as well.
I think it was available previously, but about the right now, I'm not sure about that. But you can create your account in that manner. And what you can do, in the coming classes, I'll just tell you that how you can create an email alert. Let's say if your utilization goes, let's say around $1 per month. So email will be triggered to your email. Yeah.
So pre-subscription is going to end, it will alert us.
Even that thing, and let's say if you forgot to stop your any resource, then definitely it is going to cost you. So we can we can create a costing alert. Let's say if some cost, let's say 0.5 USD is going to be utilized, then you will receive the email alert, and you can check that which resource is using it, and you can stop that.
Okay.
Okay, guys. So this is all about the introduction of Linux. So from tomorrow onwards, we will start our Linux chapter in the full flow. Yeah. Any questions you have?
Yes, sir. Sir, I have already account in AWS,
Okay.
but it's not. मेरा MFA का दिक्कत आ रहा है उसमें. अच्छा, मेरा फोन लॉस्ट हो गया था. तो
हाँ, तो
दूसरा
आप
अकाउंट बना सकता हूँ
नहीं
क्या?
नहीं, MFA आप रिमूव कर सकते हो बॉस.
हाँ.
आपका ईमेल आईडी तो MFA पे यूज हो रहा ही होगा ना. वो ईमेल आईडी तो आपने चेंज नहीं किया.
नहीं,
हाँ, तो आप अपना MFA रिमूव कर सकते हो उस पे.
बट वो वेरिफिकेशन मांग रहे हैं फोन का भी, तो फोन
नहीं
तो
नहीं
अभी
नहीं
यहाँ
नहीं
पे मेरा
नहीं.
यूज नहीं
अगर
है.
आपका फोन लॉस हो गया है तो देर इज अ ऑप्शन कि आप अपना MFA रीसेट करवा सकते हो AWS से.
ओके.
Yeah.
ओके, लेट मी ट्राई.
Yeah.
थैंक यू.
Okay. Okay, guys. Let's connect on tomorrow.
And because how many like sorry, I don't know exactly the duration of this course. Today only I attend this first.
It is from 1:30. I mean, it is at least 1:30 hours.
130 hours.
Yeah.
It will be like weekend batches only. There.
It will be weekdays.
Saturday.
Initially, it will be weekdays batches, and for the batch related thing, what you can do, you can connect with Gaurav. He will more guide you on this.
Okay. Yeah.